Hey, it's Noel, and this is the first episode in a series about the Sand Creek Massacre. Throughout the series, we'll focus on sharing Cheyenne and Arapaho accounts and oral histories, and you'll be hearing a lot less from me than usual in order to keep the focus on their stories and their accounts. In this episode, you'll be hearing from Fred Mosqueda, Blanche Whiteshield, and Colleen Kometsiva. You'll also hear from Kendall Colley, Ricky Candy, Tony Cartwright, and Chester Whiteman. They're all members of the Cheyenne and Arapaho tribes and descendants of the massacre's victims. Some of these recordings were made in the late 90s and early 2000s as part of the Sand Creek Massacre National Historic Sites designation. They are recordings of elders who are no longer with us, and their knowledge of the Sand Creek Massacre was presented as part of History Colorado's exhibit, The Sand Creek Massacre, the betrayal that changed Cheyenne and Arapaho people forever. This is the first time they've been shared outside of a museum or an archive. But before we get started, the tribes have asked that we give a little bit of background on what happened. The Sand Creek Massacre was the deadliest day in Colorado history, and it changed Cheyenne and Arapaho people forever. On the morning of November 29, 1864, U.S. troops under the command of Colonel John M. Chivington attacked a peaceful camp of Cheyenne and Arapaho people, made up mostly of women, children, and elders, along the Big Sandy Creek in southeastern Colorado near the present-day town of Eads. The scale of the massacre was horrifying. More than 230 men, women, and children were murdered in the most brutal ways imaginable. U.S. troops mutilated living and dead bodies, taking body parts as gruesome trophies back to be paraded and displayed in Denver. The massacre resulted in the permanent removal of all Cheyenne and Arapaho tribes from their rightful homelands in Colorado. Many Cheyenne and Arapaho people still live in Colorado, though many more live in Oklahoma, where the Cheyenne and Arapaho tribe is headquartered. What follows are the stories and oral accounts of that horrible day that forever changed the lives of Colorado's original landkeepers. First, we'll hear from Fred Mosqueda, tribal historian for the Cheyenne and Arapaho tribes, recorded at the Sand Creek Massacre site in 2022.
You come here, to me, you spend time listening to it and feeling it, It's a sad place, it's not one to be celebrated. First thing I thought of when I was coming today was, I told my wife, we topped that hill, so there's the killing grounds. And that's what it was. The deceit, the lying, the dishonesty, all that ended here with this massacre. That was the end result of the government not being honest and using them as a pawn. When they had the meeting at Camp Weld, that set everything in motion. That gave Chivington and Evans the pawns to put a feather in their hat for political reasons. That's what they were doing. But also to get rid of them, because they didn't want us in Colorado. We were in the way. To me, it's just a horrible thing that the Arapahos were completely just tore to pieces. And that was the intent of the people doing this, was to mutilate and to make an example, you might say. And they had the right people there to do this. So this is what happened, here. That they were just totally wiped out, except for the children. And the children ran. The lies and the deceit, that's the thing you have to think about. They were put here. They were told to be here. Curtis called them prisoners of war. And so they were held here. They were told to stay here. There was nothing here because they were told to be here. This is where it was safe. That when they heard the military approaching, they went out to watch. They probably were thinking, well, maybe we're going to get some more rations today, because they were starving here. So they went out there to see, maybe they're bringing us rations. Maybe they're bringing us word of where we can go, what we're going to do, what's going to happen. Instead, they were fired upon. They were destroyed as they stood there. No adults survived that attack. Only children ran from the Arapaho camp. Our people always said that, they weren't given proper burial. They weren't given proper songs and prayers and medicine ways that we help our people to go across. They weren't painted. These things were not allowed because they weren't here. They were butchered. But I told you, when you get here, you listen and you feel, because there's some spirits that are still here that they're still questioning. Maybe they come here to try to tell us something. Well, we won't forget them for what happened to them. We learn from what happened to them. But there's that feeling here. The times have allowed us a chance to educate. The people are more open now to listen to our history, listen to who we are, what we happened to us. They want to know. And so we have to be ready when the opportunity comes to educate. There's a lot of people still that support, Chivington, that supports, Byers and Evans and all them that were prominent in Colorado history. They still support them. But I think they're starting to listen to us a little bit. So we got to be ready to educate them on who we were back then. In the 1850s, who was the Arapaho people? And we have to be able to tell them right then. We have to be able to be ready to educate them. Not only them, but schools too. We can go into schools, we tell these stories of who we are, who we were in the 1850s. And then they see us today, that, we're still Arapaho people. We still got that same belief, that same feelings. We still have the same medicines. We still have the same songs from there to now. But it's just that we've had to adjust in this world. But we can still educate them and tell them, who we are. They see the streets, Arapaho Street, Cheyenne, and, Nawatha, what they call Niwot. And we tell them who he was. We tell them his sister made it to Oklahoma. She's buried there in Banner, Oklahoma. And we can tell them, who their descendants are today. We can tell them, they're still living. They know the stories. And we have to be ready to tell them, to educate them of who the Arapaho people are and who we still are today. The times have just made it so that they're listening a little more than they did before. And we have to be ready for that. Sand Creek caused a lot of things. There was a lot of ripples from this, what happened here. There was a lot of distrust to the United States government. A lot of things happened. And, we had to pay for a lot of things because of the way we reacted to it. But when you was born in Arapaho, there was certain things that happened in your life. But the main thing they taught you was always to take care of each other. And I think if everybody, the non-natives, the tribes, if they can all look at that and say, that's how we survived, it's by taking care of each other. Why can't we all start to look at what happened and realize that, yes, we're never going to forget this. Yes, we're always going to have this in the mind. It's part of history. It's part of Colorado history. It's part of United States government history. But we can learn from it. And you have to understand why sometimes we have a little distrust, why we question things, why we're a little leery about government and how our treaties didn't really take care of us. But then use that to all look at each other and say, well, we have to take care of each other. if we're going to make it. That's how the Arapahoes made it, you know, and I think that's the thing that they should look at, because then it would be a better place everywhere if we just all took care of each other.
Next, we'll hear oral histories of the Sand Creek Massacre from Blanche Whiteshield, a Cheyenne elder and descendant of massacre victims. This was recorded more than 30 years ago as part of founding the Sand Creek Massacre National Historic Site.
They said that some old man's chiefs, they really want to make a peace with the government. And they've been, having a meeting to having peace. And these Indians chiefs, they really trust white men. They don't like to cheat. Like, once they become a chiefs, they got to be honest. They got to be sincere and love their people and help them in good way. Since they become a chief, they can't argue with anyone. If somebody hurts them, they got to take their pipe and smoke. That's all they could do. And these two old men, that Black Carol and another one, let's see, what's his name? Is it sitting in there? They went just a few days before, talked to them. They went to soldier camp and they really want a peace, and they came back to the village. And somebody told them, if they're going to come and attack you. No, they won't do that. No, we're just making a peace with them soldiers. They call them blue coats too. They didn't take the word warning. Indian is like that. Once they make agreement with somebody, they take it serious. You should walk. No, they won't hurt us. And next thing they know, they come, those blue coats, and shooting at them. And it's when they start shooting at them, this Black Cattle and White Antelope, they got that flag. I guess they got that flag from those soldiers. Somebody told them to wave it, so soldiers won't attack you. Just wave it, you're already making a peace, he told them. So they did, they raised up their flag. Instead, they blue coats destroy it. And then they shoot at them. A lot of them scatter out, the women and children. They scatter out, try to hide in the banks. And one woman was carrying she was pregnant. She started to run and jump into that bank. I guess that baby born. And one old lady came running that's been hiding there. She got that baby to take care of him. Another guy, my husband's relative, that was his grandma's son, came running. He jumped into that bank, that guy. His religion was, they call them clowns, they backward. It was their religion, not for funny way like they do now. He came and jumped into that pit. And this woman, this nurse, oh no, you came to the wrong place. When he looked, there was a baby born. No, he jumped out right away, cause his backward. That means he was happy seeing the baby. Just he started to run off, try to run. Soldiers got him, shut him down. And next day they know that my husband's grandma, and they brought her. I guess she got shut down at their teepee, and she got this. They cut her up everywhere. She was still breathing and alive. She was Spanish woman.
Yeah.
She was still alive, and she had a little girl. This little girl, I guess she got escaped from that camp some way. This mother, the Spanish woman, she was all cut up, and they took care of her. China, make her to survive, and anyway she was dying. She was asking for her little girl, and they told her she already ran off. She got escaped. Oh, she was happy. Later she died. She was a Spanish woman, and her the one that got shut down, that clown, and this little girl. I guess she had 2 kids. And when she died, I don't know what they do there. And let's see. Anyway, that's what they tell us, our grandmas. That horse, I can't go, but a lot of them got shut down. They were all relatives. Since there's one village, that's one man's family, they camped together. This must be Black Kettle's village. That's all I can remember.
This is Colleen Kometsiva, a Cheyenne elder whose family memories and histories of Sand Creek were also recorded as part of founding the National Historic Site.
Well, the only things I ever heard was from my maternal side. Of course, some information from my paternal side. My paternal grandfather, Paul, used to tell us that his grandfather, Big Jake, was at Sand Creek and that he survived. But he didn't go into any specifics. He just said that he survived. And on my maternal side, my great-great-grandmother was Young Woman Stone, who was buried at the Colony Cemetery. She died in 1905, I think it was. Anyway, she was married about 4 times, and she had 4 grown sons, one of whom was Sue. And Sue was my maternal grandmother's father. He was a half-brother to Mary Littlebear Inkenish. Sue was the one that was mentioned in George Bent's book as one of the first young men at Sand Creek to see the soldiers. He had gone out to check on the family's horses, and he was met by another young man named Kingfisher running back to the camps, and he was shouting that the soldiers were white men were running off their horses. And when he looked, he could see the soldiers coming from the south. He ran back to his camp, to their teepee. His mother and father were already gone, so he grabbed up his weapons and put on his war bonnet and and ran out to dodge behind the teepee so that they couldn't get a good shot at him. And he ran upstream with the soldiers right behind him shooting every step of the way. He said when he got to the pits and he tumbled in the pits, he said nearly all the feathers were shot out of his war body. But he survived, and so did his mother and father. And then my mother's father's side, her father was named Irvin Good Blanket. His Cheyenne name was Powell. Well, he told my grandmother, I guess after they were married, that his grandparents were both killed at Sand Creek. His grandfather's name was Sue, with tooth missing. The one in the home was the Cheyenne name, and translated that means a Sioux with missing tooth. And he had two wives. Wife number one, Blackfoot woman, was also killed at Sand Creek. So that was my great-great-grandfather and great-great-grandmother. And wife number two survived. She later remarried and had. And then my maternal grandmother was named Minnie Sue Good Blanket. Her mother's name was Walking Woman. And Walking Woman's father was Black Kettle number one. And her mother's name was Musaya, which is, they attempted to translate it as Stan's moving. And both of these were killed at the wash. But Sue and his three brothers were half-brothers. Well, it would be two brothers and were all half-brothers to Sue, or Little Bear. Or I'm getting mixed up there. Sue and his two brothers were half-brothers to Little Bear. Anyway, I heard these stories from the time I was a little girl, and from time to time they would talk about it. And that's how come I knew I was descended from someone at Sand Creek.
And what were some of the stories that you heard?
Just that the soldiers, the way they mutilated the dead, and some of them that didn't die immediately, they killed them, and that they did that one day, and then they stayed overnight in the Indian camps, and they plundered the camps and burned them the next day. And I heard from different families, different stories, such as a mother that was running with her little girl. She managed to catch a horse, and she jumped on and rode that horse by her little girl, and that little girl held out her arm, and her mother grabbed her by the arm and put her on a horse in front of her. And then this lady I was telling you about, Mrs. Starr, she said that her great-great-grandmother was a little girl, and she'll tell you how she was covered, put in the hole and covered with sand and leaves and what have you. And she said she survived it. And then I think Larry told you about these two small children. Their father caught one of those horses that was running loose through the camps, and put his little son and daughter on the horse and told them to keep it going, and gave them a stick or something to keep switching it. And the two little kids ran the horse toward Smoky Hill until it gave out and died from exhaustion. And different families that we talked to about Sand Creek in the past years would tell us things like that. So they're very much alive, these stories, and they're handed down to children and grandchildren.
Kendall Cawley, Ricky Candy, and Tony Cartwright are members of the Cheyenne and Arapaho tribes. In 2022, they generously shared their stories of the Sand Creek Massacre as part of a public remembrance held in Boulder, Colorado.
My name is Kendall Cawley. I'm a Cheyenne from Hammond, Oklahoma. I'm a direct descendant of Owl Woman. The place we come from is called Hammond, Oklahoma. The population is roughly around 500-ish, and it's 50% Cheyenne and 50% Caucasian. Almost every family there is a direct descendant of Sand Creek and Ouachita. My family here, Sarah Orange, her mother Jolene Orange, they're from the Fingernail family. Their sons, Derek White Skunk and Darren, they're part of the White Skunks. They're direct descendants. Also, my father-in-law is here. He comes from Standing Waters and White Man's. They're also direct descendants. The story is of Yellow Dress there at Sand Creek. The mother was carrying a baby whenever the cavalry attacked. The baby was shot in the leg, which also passed through the mother. The mother died there, but the baby survived. And here in recent times, whenever our people would gather, they would honor that baby, which was a full-grown woman now, an elder. They would cater to her needs. They would honor her when we gather. And that was the story of Yellow Dress. And here are some of the names that are from Hammond, such as White Shield, Fingernails, White Skunks. This is just going off the top of my head. Magpies, Little Man. Little Man was from there. But I just wanted to let you know that our Cheyenne people are still here and we're doing really good. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Ricky Candy. I'm Cheyenne from Hammond, Oklahoma. Family come up here. It's kind of hard to tell these Sand Creek and Ouachita stories. The way we heard it, you can feel it when they tell you. But my Cheyenne name is Ishiamahas. It means red moon. And there's a few other people that carry that name. But how I'm here and my family is that this chief named Red Moon, he made a place for us in Hammond and Cheyenne. You say Ishiamahaven. It just means Red Moon's haven. How we ended up there was during Sand Creek. He was still a young man. He wasn't chief yet. I believe his father was. I believe his father had gotten shot. Red Moon had got shot when he started running off. He made it. A lot of them didn't. But if he didn't make it, if he didn't run, I wouldn't be here. So I just want to say thank you for having us. Nahana.
Hello, my name is Tony. I'm Southern Arapaho. I grew up near Calumet, Oklahoma, on my grandparents' allotted land. I was raised by my grandparents, John and Rose Charco Pedro. I come from the Pedro, Charco, and Dyer family. This story that I'm going to share with you today was told to me by my grandmother, Rose Charco Pedro. Sand Creek, November 29th, 1864. On this morning, an Arapaho woman was inside her teepee with her two small children, a boy and a girl. The mother told the children that the soldiers were in the camp. and that she was going to cut open the back of the teepee, and when the soldiers come to the door, they are to run out the back and to run and to run and to keep running. So they did as they were told, while their mother fought the soldiers at the teepee door. This gave them time to escape. A day or two after the attack, these children were found wandering by a Mexican family. They were able to get the children to go back with them to their cabin. This family took care of these children as their own for a couple of years. They gave the boy the name Pedro and the girl the name Maria. One day, the Mexican man was away from his home. He seen a group of Indians riding south. He stopped and told them, and somehow got them to follow him home, where he showed them the Indian children, believing maybe the children might belong to the tribe. The leader spoke to the children in Arapaho, and the children understood. The leader told him, "These are our children." This group of Indians took the children with them. They were going to the agency at Darlington, Oklahoma. They turned the children over to the authorities at the agency. They asked the children their names, who their family was. The children only remembered their mother's name. The agent gave them first names, Tony Pedro and Maria Pedro. They kept the names Pedro as their last name. That is where my family name, Pedro, came from. That little boy, Tony Pedro, was my great-great-grandfather.
Finally, we'll hear from Chester Whiteman, descendant of the massacre's victims and a tribal historian for the Cheyenne and Arapaho tribes. This was recorded at the History Colorado Center in 2023.
There's a bow and arrow set right next to your fireplace. I said, my great-granddad made that. I said, I watched him make it. And the tips were German silver, you know. And he cut them out with those big old tin snips. He cut them out and then he sharpened them. He said, don't bother them, they're sharp. What I do, bother them. Cut me. What I'd like to talk about is like the treaties. You know, the beginning of Sand Creek, prior to Sand Creek, was that Wynkoop met with Black Cattle. But Black Cattle wouldn't meet with him because of, you know, the stuff that happened before. So he sent some of his warriors out there to meet Wynkoop, and they shot one of the guys, you know, Lean Bear, I think it was. Mm-hmm. And after they settled all that, then they wanted to talk, so Black Cattle came out and talked with them, and they wanted to talk peace. And I think Wynkoop was kind of on the offensive, and he wanted to have war, but when he spoke with Black Cattle, that it switched around, that he was looking for peace. And Black Cattle said, we'll go get these captives from one of the other bands, and we'll bring them as an offering, peace offering, to, you know, further this discussion. So that's what he did. He left and he went and got them captives and brought them back, and so that's when they ended up in Denver with Evans and Chivington to talk peace. And when they got finished, they wouldn't budge on negotiations. So they pushed Black Cattle and his crew off to Wynkoop to take him down to Sand Creek or to Bent's Fort or Fort Lyons. And they said, he will take care of you. So they go down there, and however they did things, and they were asking for rations and different things like that, and the government didn't want that. They wanted hostilities, and in the background they're making the 1st and 3rd Colorado militia. And when they seen that Wynkoop was getting too friendly with with the Black Kettle's bunch, they moved him out and put, I think, Anthony in there, and he cut all the ties off with Black Kettle, with the folks that were at Sand Creek. And the first and third were supposed to be looking for hostiles. And, you know, the funny thing is, all the hostiles were up around Smoky Hill country and Republican River, but he came south to where all the ones that were looking for peace, and they agreed because of the proclamation that Evans put out that all hostile Indians and all the friendly Indians go to certain locations, and the Cheyennes were going to go to Sand Creek or to Bent's Fort or Fort Lyons. So they already did a massacre at Buffalo Springs and killed a family or two down there. I think 30 people, something like that, 10 to 30 Cheyennes, and said they were robbing a mail trailer or something, which they have no use for mail, you know, and they can't read, they can't write, so how do they justify that, you know? So then Sand Creek happens, you know, and they instead of looking for hostiles, and they have so many days left on their 100-day tour, so they have to find action, and he didn't want to go to up north to fight the real warriors. Instead, he picks on women and children and elders that couldn't fight back, and it was actually a killing field, you know, and it killed a bunch of young people and elders, and then they did the mutilations and paraded them through downtown Denver, and then the treaties came about. Was like we still had the 1851 treaty in place from the Front Range to Nebraska. That was our territory, you might say, but we never owned anything, you know. We always worked with the land, and doctrine of discovery came, and everybody wanted to own this and own that. After the 51 treaty came I think it was the Fort Wise Treaty, where they gave us some property around Sand Creek and that area. But before the ink could dry, they didn't even have it mapped or surveyed. The 1868 treaty came into play, which just took away the Fort Wise Treaty, which would have kept us in Colorado. But they gave us the 68 treaty, the Medicine Lodge Treaty, and gave us the western half of Oklahoma. And then right after they gave us the 68 Medicine Lodge Treaty, then that's when the Dawes Act came into play, and we lost from 5 to 7 million acres of our own property with the 89 Oklahoma land run. So we really got shortchanged, and we still have, I think we got probably maybe 80,000 acres still that in tribal control, maybe more than that. And that's individual allotments and tribal allotments. And there's one reservation in Oklahoma that's recognized by the government, and that's the Osage Reservation. It's still our property, you know. We're still holding on to our way of life. we still have our covenants that were given to us way back, and we still practice those ways of life today. We were given a covenant that is about war, but we didn't go out and look for war. If it came to us, then we went to war. And our people, I don't know what it was, but our people were, I don't know, huge trophies for the United States government. You don't hear stories about other tribes the way you do about Cheyennes and Arapahos. They were actually hunted, by the government because they were warriors that would not give. They wouldn't surrender. And today I'm doing a lot of research on, we touch on Sand Creek a little bit, we touch on Ouachita a little bit. We're still tracking the 53 ladies that were captured at Ouachita. They were used as a shield so Custer could get out of that war zone there. So we're still tracking those. I think we got about 14 or 18 of them identified. But and then a lot of research on Little Bighorn. And we were always left out of the Little Bighorn story, the Southern Cheyennes. But I have a list of all the warriors that participated at the Little Bighorn. And if you look at that list and know what you're talking about, there's a lot of Southern Cheyenne warriors that were leading the war parties at the Little Bighorn. It was the Dawes Act when they opened it up for settlement. The Dawes Act gave each tribal member 160 acres of their choosing. And then when they got theirs, then they opened it up for all the non-Indians. And a lot of our folks got swindled out of their own 160, and that's still going on today. I used to be able to, if I had a problem or was in a dilemma, I would go down and talk to one of the old guys, one of my instructors, and take him an offering and ask him, because they told me when you go and ask somebody, if you want the truth, take them some tobacco. They have to tell you the truth. So otherwise, if you don't take them something like that, then they can tell you anything they want. So I would always do that, follow protocol, and ask them, and they would tell me. There wasn't a whole lot of things that I had to ask, but sometimes one of these younger guys would throw a curve at me, and I wouldn't know how to answer it. So I go and talk to him, and then after all my folks that I got information from were gone, I started looking around. I said, man, where do I go? Who do I ask? And I sit there, and light bulb came on, So I have a sweat lodge in the back of my house. So I would go back there and sit and pray a little bit and sit there for a little bit longer. And it was like they were talking to me. The information they gave me was, my answer was in that information. So that's how I still do that today. And I try to tell other folks, the knowledge you have, share it, please, because no telling when your number's gonna be up, And the knowledge you have, if it doesn't get past it's gone. I said, some of you guys have good knowledge. I know because I was there. And some said, well, I'm not going to share anything with them. Okay, well, I'm not going to beg you, you know. Your choice. Because, you know, this is your life. This is the way it's supposed to be. And for our next generation to continue on, you know, we try our best to fill in the blanks for these younger generation. They really did that? You know, did they really do that? The soldiers really did that? I said, yeah, you have to understand. I said, man, we weren't like this the way we are today. I said, we were out there on the plains, was moving, doing this and that. I said, and Cheyenne people were trophies. I said, it was an honor for those folks in the military to take out Cheyennes. I said, that's just simple fact. I said, if you look at everything, I said, we always had a bullseye on us.